beautifully and sitting nicely, and they're all together. I'm going to go ahead and tell you how my mind thinks on stands. So we'll go through it, and then I'll give you the exam question I'm formulating for either this exam or the final. Okay? I'm going to tell you why you think just beyond all the straightforward stuff that I'm going to show you. Okay? Because that'll prepare you for the rest of your stuff. Okay, so information stuff again. For those of you that are coming for the first time, this is Biology 118. If you're in the wrong class, back and enjoy it. My office is in Hitchcock 216. That is way over by the medical center. I'm not in my office. I'm office in the rotunda, chatting with nurses. So, my office hours are going to be right after this class, and there'll be exceptions every once in a while. So I'm here to tell you right now, every once in a while there'll be exceptions, because no one wants to walk all the way over there. I'm willing to have office hours closer to this building since it's right after class. So, for example, today I'm going to shift to office hours. And I'm also going to meet anybody at any time if you just tell me when and where. Okay? And I'm available, of course. You need to be buying these clickers. Just out of curiosity, how many people have these suckers today? Oh, a couple of you. So I put a couple of questions in to try to test drive it. These aren't going to be the test questions. Yeah, go ahead and pull them out. We want to test drive this, make sure your batteries work. Right. I know that some of you have ordered them on Amazon. I know that some of you are trying to weasel them out of your friends. That's all fine. You have to register it though. So what's going to happen is I'm going to see if anything is not registered. I will have numbers on here, and then I watch you put a slide up saying, hey, if this is your number, I have no idea who you are. So I know this adds complication, but believe it or not, there's just a tremendous amount of data that says that these clickers help. They work. They're using them in medical schools now. And the medical students just think they're above all that, but they are. Getting an idea of where you stand in the process of things as we talk to you and as we talk to each other goes a long way. Okay. Another thing that I want to emphasize again is study groups. Having an opportunity to explain something to me, which is really the best study groups I've ever had, and in Australia, it's usually the way it came out. Because I would sit down and someone said, here, this is what I think you're saying. They'd say it in a really weird Aussie accent, but they'd say, this is what I think you're saying, and they'd go to some point, and I would ask a question. It doesn't mean they were wrong, it just means I'm not sure what you're saying here. Having to just parrot, repeat what I said doesn't work. Because on the exam, it's going to be different from how I speak here. The idea is the more ways you can see things, the more likely you are to understand the concept as opposed to memorizing the figure. You will notice that I'm not currently using figures from the book. Okay? As we get into deeper stuff, if we have figures of cells, the body structure, I will start with a figure from the book, then I will put my own figures in there, which are usually a lot simpler than the ones in the book. So that means you at least have two things to expose. And then 90% of you will go on Wikipedia and look at their figures. All right? And so having multiple reference points for this information means that you just say, yeah, it's a different picture, but they're just talking about the renal system backup type of stuff, right? It all looks different, but I recognize it. Okay. So a study group, again, is one of the best ways to go. You will not be able to form a study group on Thursday next week and get me to attend. This is not going to happen. Earlier next week, we might be able to meet on Monday or something, and then you can say, well, let's do it again on, say, Wednesday, something like that. On Thursday, I'm going to try to schedule a review session for around dinner time. Okay? I do not want a late review session before an exam. That's when you want to just go home, so everybody else to go off and have your own time to figure out what you're doing. I will do something, though. I will stay up late the night before the exam because I don't have to take it. And I will answer your questions by email. Once again, if it's a question that's been asked many times and you're just asking in a different way, I'll answer you directly. If it's a novel question, I'll strip out who's asking the question. I'm not going to say, oh, Jessica said this. I'm going to take your question and I will post it online. I'll send it out to everybody in the mail, right? I might even start a discussion or do both or something like that. But I will stay up. I will just hover over my computer. I will not look at Netflix or porn. I will just wait and I will answer your questions. The exam will be done by Wednesday. Okay? All right. Office hours are going to be the hub today. Can't even find me after class. All I see is student faces. I'm going to meet some people after class. We're going to talk about some stuff. If you need to talk to me, come talk to me after class. The next professor should be coming in, so we'll hunt around that way. Okay? And so we'll meet in the little hallway out there. And then if you want to go to the hub, and I can talk to you about anything we talked about today. This is literally the first subject today. Okay. You have a patient. You can put your pencils down. Just listen. Just relax. All right. You have a patient. The patient comes to you complaining of dizziness. All right? The patient comes to you complaining of pain. Okay? The patient has a ringing in their ears. All right? So, you look at this patient and you think, well, first of all, they're drunk. Yeah? But then you realize that when you look at their skin, so the ringing in the ears is called tinnitus. The dizziness, where you're not able to orient yourself according to the ground or level horizons, is called vertigo. Right? And then you're going to start seeing an angiokeratomas. Angiokeratomas are splotches on the skin. It's where the capillaries are failing on a regular basis. So this person has involvement in pain, which is the nervous system. They have involvement in the ears, or up in the, that's actually pretty close to the central nervous system, so a sensory thing. And they have an issue in the vascular system of the skin. Okay? And it's a bizarre patient until you start to ask a few other questions, and they complain that when they run, they have heart problems. Their heart beats really fast and it hurts. And tests show they have a cardiomyopathy, meaning their heart's failing, it's hurting, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. So now you have a patient that you tell your friends over the table over there, and they're trying to, boy, they're dizzy, they have vertigo, they have tinnitus, the ears are ringing, they have blood vessel bursting in their skin, right? And they have heart problems. Then they come to you and they say, I have problems peeing. Something's wrong with me. These are all systems we're going to study. So this person basically is driving an entire physiology class. Okay? So they're standing there, their kidneys are in trouble, and you start analyzing their kidneys, and you have an answer. The answer is revealed to you because of the kidney problem, but more importantly, because of this. This is a cornea verticillata. It's a weird change in the cornea. It's a radial feature. It's basically deposit of keratin in the cornea. Partially made out of keratin. What this person has is Fabry's. F-A-B-R-Y-S. Now, what Fabry's is a failure of a gene, a mutant gene, to produce a working enzyme. The working enzyme normally is called, well, it is called, if it's normal, alpha-galactosidase. You will learn about enzymes just in a few days, but this is a single mutation out of 3 billion base pairs in your DNA. That single mutation leads to a gene that can't process a sugar. Beta-galactosidase is found in all my favorite foods, Pop-Tarts, Lucky Charms, all the good stuff. Okay? That single mutation, though, doesn't kill the person. This is vital stuff, beta-galactosidase. Why? Why do they have all these symptoms? Why do they have a failure of a major enzyme in their body? Why aren't they dead? More importantly, this is the biggest key, these people usually don't report these symptoms, even though they've had them since birth, until their third decade of life. Why don't you? Yeah, homeostasis is our subject, but how does homeostasis and Fabry disease come together? Why is it that they live to their third decade of life and then say, this ain't right? Why is it when they're young, they don't report the fact that they have these problems, even though they have them? Okay. I don't know. Homeostasis is the regulation of physiological conditions. This entire lecture, which we can get done pretty quickly if the student through it, is about homeostasis. However, I'm going to put two twists on it, right, to take it one step beyond what you normally learn in standard biology of homeostasis. So homeostasis is the tendency of physiological systems to keep the internal environment of the body, between limits. Okay. Now, that's only true some of the time. We're most interested in when it isn't true. So I'll tell you all the stuff that happens when it is true, but the most exciting part is when it isn't true. At the end of this class, we'll talk about hormones, and that's a great time to talk about when this system is not trying to drive to normal, but trying to drive to excess, which invokes change. Okay? All right. So this is leading to the last topic I said that you keep in mind throughout this course. These are the four things that we tested on at every exam, which is the structure. I'm going to have you look at the parts and recognize the parts. I rarely will have you name a part. Because it's a scantron, I'm the one who's going to write the names in there. And you'll see Pop-Tart, you'll see Tater Tots, and then you'll see left ventricle, and then you'll see something else, Lucky Charm. But I don't care that you memorize the words that you say. Believe me, there's 5 terms for every one. I want you to recognize it. Quite often I'll say the thingy I'm pointing at, right? And then I'll ask you what it does, what's its function. And then I'll say, how does it do that? So more often than not, I will name the parts. I don't want you to have a massive list of parts. I'm actually giving you a list slowly of the words that you need to know for the class. Words you may not use every day, like homeostasis. But you should call your mom up and say, homeostasis, homeostasis. Say, I learned something good. All right. Regulation is what homeostasis is all about. We want to know how you regulate things. Now, regulation is a fuzzy term. If you think in absolutes, you're going to have a problem. Because your body temperature, everybody knows you can get a fever or you can be cold, but your body temperature changes throughout the day, and we want it to. Your body temperature drops at night, and you get cold. Right? And the plasma growth hormone, this is a hormone that actually causes cells to divide, it causes repair, basically, in the body. That peaks just as you go to sleep. If you don't sleep, as you saw in the last lecture, your damage to your body starts to accumulate. Believe it or not, I'm encouraging you to sleep. I'm not encouraging you to study late. The best scores on the exams that I give have always been by people who slept, even if they didn't think they were done studying, who slept the night before. Got up early, just scanned their notes quickly, because you will do much better if you've had a full night's sleep. Plasma cortisol is quite interesting. It's one of the major things that causes people, and I'm going to just say this out front so that you can relate it to a later exam question. Cortisol causes stress. It's going to be a universal truth on your final exam. Cortisol causes stress. It's the signal of the body that says, we need to change. Now that's different from homeostasis. So look at that. Cortisol comes along, and it's lowering throughout the day. It's really low at night. You fall asleep, and then it spikes. It's basically saying, get out, right? wake up. And so cortisol stops cell repair. Cortisol makes you want to pee, which is often the motivation for getting out of bed on a cold winter day. So, urinary plaque, or potassium, it sounds like a strange thing to reference. It's actually the thing that's drawing water out of your body, getting deposited into your urine. We're going to have 2 to 3 whole days of urine talk, but it's the potassium from your body that goes and draws the water, which increases the volume. Okay, so you do have changes in levels. Right. The homeostasis function is to maintain a relatively stable internal environment. And I say relative, really mean that. Okay? And it's an internal environment. That means one of the biggest notions of life. If you go on, whether some form of biology or healthcare or whatever interest you have, the whole point of it, literally some of the descriptions of your life, is a contained area that has a different environment that's maintained outside of another area. And you say, well, don't we know what life is? We don't. There are people arguing about things that are moving around on this planet as to whether they are alive or not. Viruses is a good one. So one definition of life is that it controls in an internal environment. All right, so how does this homeostasis work? It works through 2 things. The most obvious one is someone comes up, pokes you with a stick, you react, right? And we'll be doing that when we do the nervous and muscular system. You react. That is a reflex response. A longer-term process is feedback response. So, here are some examples. Body temperature I've already mentioned to you. I'm going to harp on this a little bit because it's something everybody knows about. Plasma concentrations of ions change. Believe it or not, that line is going to show up again and again and again. I'm going to show the slide over and over again because that line is what drives your nervous system. It's what drives your muscles. It's what drives most of your digestion. It's what drives the immune response. Right? So it's the concentration of atoms, ions, in your blood that are highly regulated. That's a pretty strange notion. Well, I told you yesterday that the scalability of physiology goes all the way from whole organisms and in reality populations down to molecules and atoms. So the answer on 3 of your exams is going to be sodium ions. Which ones? Exam 3, number 4. So, plasma oxygen and carbon dioxide, we're going to do a lecture on that. That'll actually be kind of a nifty one, because everybody's going to go start holding their breaths and figuring out stuff. But that's highly regulated through feedback. You don't breathe because you want to. This is one of the most amazing things. I'm going to start these ideas because we're going to touch on them again. Everybody says, well, I can hold my breath until some point, and then your body says, well, I think that's enough. You can hold your breath until you hit a tolerance limit, and your body kicks in and says, what an idiot, and starts your breathing again. Okay? You breathe if you choose to. You can sit there and start hyperventilating if you want, and your body will stop you breathing, stop for a while, and then it will reset internally. If you give your body lots all the oxygen at once, it's happy, your brain is kind of tingling, you feel like you can see flies in space, but your body stops you from breathing, and then you reset. It's a feedback process. So another thing that we're going to deal with is hormones over time, glucose concentration. That'll be a big part of the 3rd unit. The amount entering the eye is both a reflex and homeostasis response. When you go into a dark room, it's homeostasis. When you walk out of the dark room into bright light, it's a reflex. Notice how I'm in the center of the room, coming up close, kind of creepily. Going out of the room, it's a reflex response. Why? And we're making the distinction between the reflex and the homeostasis response. What's the difference between going into a room? When you go into a room, and you're there for a bit, you can see dark in the darkness where you couldn't before, and you go out, the light hits you, and it only takes you a second. What's the difference between reflex and homeostasis? How long it takes. The reflex arc is quick. Homeostasis is long and drawn out. Okay? Usually homeostatic control is a long cycle path. Consciousness is actually a homeostatic process. You just don't know how to define it. Okay, let's give this a whirl. Don't do anything else. I always say go. Alright? We're just going to try these things. Alright. So go ahead and read this, and then I'll say go, and then we'll give you, I don't know, we'll try and see if we can do it all in 30 seconds. You mark, set, go.
What's the channel?
Yeah.
41 is the standard channel, right? This is a good thing with test driving because I have no idea how to It must be working because I have over 100 responses. We're at 20 seconds and 150 responses. I want to know how long it takes you guys to do this so I can fit lunches in. Keep going. People still trying? Still see stuff coming in. 202. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop. There's one more. Who just ran in? It's like, what? 206, 207. Okay, now this is the fine sense of drama. Okay, I'm going to stop. All right. So, an awful lot of people said one answer. Okay. Homeostasis that regulated variables such as body temperature, right? It regulates, I want to make sure I understand the language of regulating variables. The answer is C, right? It's not that you're trying to regulate it to prevent it from being the outside limits. You're trying to regulate it to keep it within the inside limits. All right? So that's very straightforward. And by the way, that is not my style of question, but they told me to start with something like this. So 89% of you got that. So either you're just stunning me, or we need to keep working on it. Let's do an example. I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly. You all know this. You've been worrying about this since day one. Your body temperature. Right? When you get sick, what happens? Okay, now I'm going to ask you a physiological question. Why does your body temperature go up? Where's that? You have little bacteria in there, like cranking out and making you work harder. Why would your body temperature go up? So that you know that you're sick. It says, okay, you're hot. Does that sound like a reasonable thing to say? Absolutely right. What did you think? I'm sorry? Kill the virus is a great idea. Kill almost never. Stop them from doing their stuff. Why would increasing the heat stop bacteria or virus from doing their thing? Because the enzymes we're going to talk about in a few days only work in a narrow band of temperature. It's why your body must regulate its temperature. Enzymes, proteins, lipids, cell membranes, all have an optimal temperature they work at. Her observation is brilliant because there's more to it. Believe it or not, I don't want to drag this out, so I'll just tell you. This is a test question answer. I'll wait for you to pull up the fence. Wait for the neighbor. Fever is the trigger. It is the effector. That's the word. E-F-F-E-C-T-O-R. The fever response is the effector for the immune system. Right? The immune system does not start cloning cells, does not start amplifying until you have a fever. Now here's the big whoop-de-doo in your life. What do you do when you get a fever? You take aspirin to knock it down. Then you say, I have this cold a week later. Why? because you killed the fever. Next time you have a fever, say, woohoo, go immune system. Huskies. Right? Killing fever doesn't work. It's a bad idea. But then, a moon test question beyond that says, why would you want to regulate fever? The fever response is a form of feedback that's not negative feedback, but positive feedback. Okay, you got it in mind, alright? So, system's normal, effective range. I'll just flip through it. I want to make sure we cover everything today. As you get towards your tolerance limits, right? As you get towards your tolerance limits, you might get disoriented just by body movement. It affects things like your nervous system. You're going to understand that very soon. Alright? Disease-related fevers and severe exercise in active children. It is true that children can work themselves up and work themselves to death because of fever goes. And what's to stop it? What kind of feedback is it? Positive feedback. Children can actually get themselves so excited that their fever will spike. In children, when the fever spikes, they go poof, and they calm down. In adults, when the fever goes up, you get agitated. You start exercising. You start moving your muscles. All right? You don't realize it, but when your temperature's up and you're really fidgety, there's a reason for that. How do you move your immune system? Believe it or not, if you find fever, going for a brisk walk, you'll follow that whole path. Not in Nome, Alaska, and Vegas, but. Alright. As you go past these lines, and there are people who have had severely depressed body temperatures, you can actually have loss of consciousness, loss of muscle control. All of these physiological functions build a clear why. What's most interesting is that we can put people into an induced coma and hypothermic state for heart surgery. Now, why would you do that? Why would you want to induce a coma in somebody for heart surgery? Yes, sir. You put open heart surgery, you put them on a pump.
And so we know them.
Exactly. You're actually telling the whole body, reset your tolerance limits. It allows you to go in and change the body. You're fussing around, you're looking for old coins and stuff like that, and you are resetting the body. Lowering the temperature resets homeostatic limits. Okay. You don't want to actively just.
I'm talking like the
Sarah?
tolerance.
Okay. Yeah.
The tolerance methods, and then a reset when you want to control. Does it make the tolerance limits go down?
Yeah, both of them.
But it's
There's a reason for that. That's good. Right. She's got a great point. When your body resets, when we induce a coma, you have changed the world. So this is key. We humans can tolerate a range, but we can change the range, right, to tolerate it. So I've been living in Australia for a long time, and I'd go up to Queensland, and those people just walk around like, it isn't 400 degrees. And I got off the plane, I just melted. They scooped me up, poured me into an air conditioned room, and I just melted. In Tasmania, this is a hot day, right? When I moved from a cold place, a very cold place, to California a long time ago, I showed up in January, and it was 75 degrees. And I was prancing around, sealing short cutoffs, and people were walking by me with down coats on. Because it's 82 degrees every day in Santa Barbara, California, and it's not cold. So we established ranges. Those ranges respond to the environment and the needs of the body. So there's two aspects of this, homeostasis and then regulation of the homeostasis. Now that I harped on that. Because one, it's a great question, and two, because that's the level I'm thinking at. When I sit there and I write an exam question, I'm saying, okay, they know homeostasis. I'm not even going to ask them to spell it. I'm going to put it right on the exam. I'm going to ask them, well, why would this be so? And you're going to sit there and chew your pencil. I'll bring extras. And you're going to say, clearly, an external factor must be changing the ranges. Okay? By the way, you know how we have different diets out there? I was recently in Bhutan. A lot of people don't know about it. It's off the edge of Tibet. Yes?
So for those that like travel a lot, and like can be like in lots of different hemispheres, how does it like maintain itself?
I don't want to answer it because that's the test question. Sure. Okay. If you ask me a good question, let's stick with it. That's exactly the question. If you travel a lot, how do you handle that? You don't. What's the first thing that happens when you get off the plane? You get sick, right? For two reasons. One, if you've gone to a different climate, right? Climate does not give you colds. Climate does not give you colds. What does climate do? It changes the conditions in which your body can tolerate things, and it doesn't know when to turn the immune system on or off. Go into a chilly climate, immune system shuts down, right? And you get incidental colds. You get the colds because you were on a plane and that little baby in front of you, that she's burping, snorts all over you, right? And they are just petri dishes. They're walking petri dishes. So you don't adjust. Why not? What's the problem? Why is travel today, okay, this is the actual question. Why is travel today worse than travel in the 19th century, 1800s? It's so fast. It's the problem with planes. Not only do they have bad food and they're tiny and you're near lots of people with bad air and they have HEPA filters on there processing the air left and right, but that doesn't stop a baby from sneezing on you. That thingy in front of you, the tray table, man, that's a scary thing. You know? I just pour alcohol on it and light it on fire when I get in there. They don't let me fly much. It's the speed. Boats allow people to adjust. Wagon trains going across countries. Trains give people time to adjust. Planes don't. So, homeostatic limits change over time. Alaskans living in northern Alaska, particularly people over generations, can eat massive amounts of fat and not get fat. People in Bhutan can eat chilies and just smile at you while you burn. All right. So basically, you exceed limits and you get too far down the limits and things go out of control. So here's the loop. You're going to see this again many times. There's going to be some stimulus. That's the stress or stressor. Doesn't matter. I use those words interchangeably. There'll be a receptor. This is the protein part of the course. When we do proteins next, you're going to say, okay, gotta know what my proteins are. And the proteins are the things that sense the environment. I have a fun one for that. And you have receptors that you probably don't know you have. Afferent pathways. I need you to know the word afferent. Going towards the integrator. Afferent going towards the brain, the CNS, or the hormone center. All right? Afferent, towards. Okay? The efferent is going away. This is going to be out of the nervous system or hormones. Then you're going to have an effector. An effector will be muscles or glands, usually. Almost all of the things, the responses that you do to your environment, are going to be muscles or glands. So I need you to know afferent, efferent, and effector. Integrator, you probably know that word already. So then you're going to have a response. Now, if you just kept doing this, it takes a while. You see how many steps there are? if it's the nervous system, I'm going to tell you this now so we can store it away. If it's the nervous system, then it's going to be very fast. If it's the hormones, it's very slow. You have two systems. You actually have a fast and a slow nervous system, and you actually have a relatively fast and a slow hormone system. The hormone system is always going to be slow. So then to regulate this over time, you're going to have feedback. That's the whole story. That's our story for today. Let's do a couple more thoughts about it. Okay? So the core differences here is that a reflex arc is you get a stimulus, you have a near immediate response, but you still get feedback. You're going to learn in the muscle part of the lecture that when you go to lift something, there's feedback that says, don't do that. You're going to learn that the limits of how much you can lift, the body will send back negative feedback that says, don't lift that, and you'll rip your muscles in half. Then you're going to learn when we get to the hormone part of the class that when grandma comes out and sees her grandkid squished under the car, that your 89-year-old 89 or 87-year-old, I can't remember, is capable of going up, slamming into the car, denting the door, and lifting the car enough that someone can pull the kid out. She broke her shoulder, but the kid came out. Okay? We shifted the limits, and we shifted them almost instantaneously. All right, so that's the arc. You have a long process, a short process with reflex arcs, and then it comes back to feedback. The feedback itself is the mechanism that we're going to be studying over the next few lectures. That mechanism takes place through signals. Signals can be nervous signals, chemicals, or change in the body. So that's what we want to know next, is the feedback signal. Okay? So, an example is going to be body temperature. And this is going to be posted. I've already posted this lecture. Okay, so the steady state is a system in which the variable is not changing. Okay? The variable is the body temp. The input is going to be the heat production, your metabolism, which we'll learn very quickly. I was going to 10-minute thing on basically you generate heat, fluxes of heat. Okay? All the time. You are nearly constantly trying to cool yourself, even on a cool day like today. Interestingly, even if you had very few clothes on, most of you would be cooling yourself. You are major factories of heat. Okay? The output is heat lost in the external environment. So if you could strip all your clothes off and not get arrested, it sucks when that happens. You would still need to find a way to shed heat. How do you do it? How do you shed? Sweat is a good one. Heat of evaporation. What's another one? Yeah, make faster. You just exchange air. It's almost the same process because your lungs, if I rip your lungs out, we'll get a volunteer later, they cover an area the size of this room. One person's lungs, the surface area is the size of this room. Your lungs are just extensions of your skin. So breathing fast in and out is a way of getting that, is sweating. Your lungs are sweating really fast. Okay? So panting works. Dogs pant all the time. They pant when they see food, they pant when it's hot, they just pant. Because their body temperature goes up. Dogs pant when they're excited. They haven't done anything. All you said was, talk. You know, or you shouldn't do that. Kitten? Yeah. So then the dogs start panting. What caused them to pant? Hormone. What hormone? You're asleep. You.
Cortisol.
Hey, you guys know something. All right. Cortisol. Yeah, it's the thing that says, well, something's different. It's the thing that says something's different or something should be different. We'll keep coming back to cortisol. Okay. So then, the input equals the output, but if it doesn't, you're getting all sorts of problems. If the room temperature drops, which I wish it would, then the heat from the body you need to increase the heat loss from the body. You're going to lower the body temperature, right? One of the ways of doing it is constriction of blood vessels. cardiovascular system. You now know that body temperature is related to the cardiovascular system. That's a fair question on the test. Curling up, it reduces surface area. Right? So it's the opposite of damping. Right? Another way to do it is increase your heat production. What's the way to increase heat production in your body without eating, without just whittling it? How do you increase heat production when you're cold? Shiver. You shiver. You're actually using a different mechanism in your body. You're not even using your nervous system. The muscles detect it, and the muscles are shivering on their own. You cannot say, I will stop shivering. What you can say is, I will tense. That's why you can't stop shivering. The muscles say, oh, reset our normal relaxed state. Now this is relaxed. Now we can shiver like this. You're doing this. Right? Shivering is good. It's how you warm up when it's cold. Okay? Alright. So, get blood away from the surface. Get small. Generate more heat. Then you return the body to normal temperature. Alright. So, negative feedback moves the response in the direction opposite or negative to the direction of the original stimulus. Okay? Positive feedback. Now, why on earth would you have positive feedback? You have positive feedback in your body. Why would you have positive feedback? I mean, is there any reasonable reason? I heard something. To get something to happen quickly. Positive feedback comes into place when you are in a situation, your body has tried everything it knows, and it says, that's not working. So you switch from negative feedback to positive feedback, and that switch makes the system go out of control because it wasn't working. Interestingly, it happens in all of us, all the time. So, some examples that I'll give you, let me make sure I define it for you. Unstable, explosive, responsive to the stimulus in the same direction as the original stimulus. Okay? Examples are blood clotting. Thank God for positive feedback. Blood clotting. Right? It just builds and builds and builds. But then it gets bad if you're flying and you get a blood clot and it just keeps growing. Right? And it will do unless something changes. When you're flying, it doesn't change. So a thrombus in flight is scary. So they tell you to start exercising. Okay? Parturition, birth, giving birth. That's a positive feedback example. The baby pushing its head against the cervix in the uterus, right, causes the woman to release oxytocin. You don't need to write that word down. Oxytocin then causes the uterus to contract, which pushes the baby into the cervix again. Another way to release oxytocin is to massage the nipples. One of the old style ways of doing it, midwifery, was doing this for, well, for all we know, millennia, but at least for centuries, is that somebody would come along and they'd say, oh, she can't give birth, and they'd start massaging her nipples, and poof, baby would fire out. Okay? We didn't know how that worked until quite recently. It was the discovery of oxytocin. Nowadays, you just do stuff. All right. Let's do one more. No, forget it. Good. I want to make sure I get to you the last couple of things. So I want to gauge how much time I've lost. Okay. So negative feedback returns things. It should be obvious, right? Positive feedback takes things beyond limits. Fever is the most common one until the problem goes away. Okay? So, physiology is a matter of limits. You have a patient that came to you after 3 decades of life of not being able to process beta-galactosidase or alpha-galactosidase. What was the problem? Why are they now reporting the problem? Sorry? The limit didn't change. What did you hit the limit? It takes you 30 will process that material. This is why you have late onset diseases often. It takes you 30 years to get sick, and then you die. All right, see you later.